sounds like the sound is coming through. If it's not, or you have any other questions, just feel free to reach out to me in the chat window, and we'll go from there. I'm in Canada today, at our next door neighbor's house, and I have little Boo with me, as always, especially because I'm traveling. Boo says bark bark. And so we're going to get started. I have a PR into Spark, which I've been wanting to merge for a long time. And it would appear that no one else really cares about it, which is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and review some of my own code. Now, admittedly, this may result in me just saying this is good, but we can watch the merge process go through, and we can see how Apache projects generally handle merges for code. So let's go ahead and get that started. Okay. So, right, as we can see, I work on a lot of different open source projects. So there's Beam, Sparkling Pandas, and Spark. I'm going to go into the Spark project. We're going to get this started. I also have some PRs and some other projects that will hopefully get time to look at as well. So this little green check mark here, happiness. As you may remember, I said normally when I'm looking for PRs to review, I go to spark-prs.appspot.com because it gives me this nice review dashboard. But if I'm looking for a PR from a specific person, the GitHub interface actually tends to work out a little bit easier for me. So we're going to go over here. And so it says add PMML export to SparkML pipelines. And I'm going to actually double check to make sure that I've got the right Jira numbers associated with this, because this PR is from December. And so it's been a while since I looked at it. So let's just double check. PMML pipelines. That looks right. And let's double check the second Jira number, make sure that this one also lines up. PMML export for ML linear regression. Okay, so we're expecting to see those two things. We're going to go ahead and add in to the description so the specific implementation for Spark ML linear regression PML export. And so, I mean, this is just, since we're adding a new API, I personally feel more comfortable when I also have a user of the API in the same PR. It just ensures that I actually have something which is at least usable by one person. Oh, and now I'm going to go ahead and update our review info text. There we go. So that should update the review info in just a little bit as soon as OBS Studio notices. So that's a good start. One of the things is, while it does have the green check mark, that could be from a really long time ago, but as we can see, one of the things that I did yesterday is merge in the latest master branch so that we're relatively confident that we're up to date. And so that's good. That looks promising, all in all. So let's go back into files changed and start looking through this code. Yeah, so this is a little bit of an interesting thing. Because we use the Java service loader, we sort of have to register our classes in this way. This is the same approach which is done in Spark SQL. So this is more or less what I would expect. I am actually curious why I'm importing pipeline stage. Actually, I'm less curious. I think I remember why. We import the old linear regression model because it has the PMML export stages that we want to access on it. And we also have Spark session. This looks Generally pretty reasonable. Okay, so back in December, Seth said that the doc string above was wrong. I said it was fixed. Let's double check that that's actually true. Returns a general ML writer instance for this ML instance. Sounds good. The since 1.6 annotation here is a little complicated since we're returning something. General ML writer implements the ML writer interface, so we're still returning something which has been compatible since 1.6. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that there. But if someone told me that we should change this since annotation, I wouldn't argue with them. It's sort of a matter of preference. So this writer, so we have two writers, right? We have an internal, which handles the sort of Spark-specific format. And we can see here that stage name looks reasonable. We have this case class of data. Our write function goes ahead and this looks pretty reasonable. I want to double check and make sure that this code matches wherever we got this moved from. So let's go ahead and find that. The case class of data looks the same, and our write function looks similar. There is something a little bit different above, and that's just because we're casting it there, and we don't necessarily have the Spark context passed through to us. So that's fine. Actually, do we need the SC, a default parameter save metadata? Default parameter save metadata. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Actually, let's double check. This is in the same class. Is it not? No, this is inside of linear regression model, which extends an ML readable, which may have the SC base class, and we don't here. Okay, that makes sense then. And then we've got PMML, and fundamentally we just go ahead. We get the old. We get our stage. We cast it. We get the old stage, and then we call the 2PMML on it. This isn't great. Eventually we're going to want to move the PMML code over, but we can do that once we finally do that for all of the rest of the places where we use the old MLlib libraries. Service loader, this thing I was talking about, Jira conversions make sense. The try success failure, that probably is reasonable. Oh, the since annotations here are probably no longer accurate. Unless, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go in and update these since annotations. Need to update since annotations. 2240. Okay, it's leaving a comment for myself, but still useful if anyone wants to go through and look at the history. It's also useful just in case I don't remember what it is I need to do at the end of this code review. Yeah, that looks pretty fine. We're using the unstable interface, which seems reasonable for a new API. Yeah. All in all, it's probably okay. This overwrite since 1.6, which is confusing, unless we moved it from somewhere else. Yeah, we moved it from somewhere else into a base class. And our since annotations here also 2.3.2.3. Okay, these are the two throws. IO exception if path exists, but overwrite is not enabled. Makes sense. Spark exception. Yeah, seems reasonable. This is more or less the pattern that we follow in the data frame one. This is the one that people generally agreed on in the previous PR as the API we wanted to explain. Okay, yeah. And so, oh yeah, I said I would include a comment in the docs, but I don't actually know if I did. Let's go up and double check and make sure that I did. Okay, looks like I didn't. We're gonna go ahead and do that. And once again, this is, it's a minor point relatively, and this is a legitimate, confusion. And it's true, the no such method exception is maybe not the clearest. But given our desire to follow the data frame interface, we're kind of stuck with this one. More sense annotations. Okay. This is the test to make sure that we can still do PMML export. The previous internal tests should still be there. Actually, that's, yeah. Double check the changes here. Yeah, PML. This is the base class. This looks like what we would expect here too. This also looks like what we would expect. Oh yeah, okay, sure. So there's a question for can I give people some tips on how to start contributing to Spark, and if there's any good issues that might be starting points for beginners. And so that's a really good question. I'm gonna finish going through this file really quickly first, and then I'll answer that one. Okay. Right, and so these were just additional tests to make sure that we fail in the way that we expect with the class inference stuff. Okay, so that's great. This is a good question, and a little bit out of what I was going to do, but it's exciting. And so generally we can find different things to do in the Spark Jira. Finding starter issues is a little bit tricky though. We don't do a great job of tagging starter issues. In my opinion, so we can go here, and so if you go to issues.apache.org, and then you select Jira, I'm going to log in. If you don't already have an account, you should definitely sign up for a Jira account because you're going to have to create an issue to track the work that you're doing if you're doing work which isn't already in the system. And if you are doing work which is in the system, you definitely want people to be able to give you credit for it later, and they do that by assigning things. And so we're going to go into view all projects because we're going to assume that maybe you don't already have Spark in there. And we can go ahead and, no, it's not showing up. And then I guess we can search because there's too many projects, and we can see that here's the Spark project. We can click through, and it will hopefully soon load. And there we can see a bunch of different things which we can do to contribute in the Spark project. While we're waiting for the Spark project Jira to load, actually, okay, it looks like it finally loaded. And so by default, this is ordered by priority. This isn't a great order if you're sort of just trying to get started, because normally things like blockers or major issues like this aren't great starter issues because they're either really important and will get solved really quickly, or they're really complicated. And so I normally, one of the things we can do is we can go ahead and we can select different orders. I normally like searching for improvements which have low priority. This one's already been resolved, but we can see that, you know, if we order it in a different way, we can find things which are less urgent and less important, and those can be better places to start. The other one, which I think, which is really a really good place to start, and we're gonna go over here into my Emacs. Yes, lovely. It does not have any secrets in it this time. And really, a great place to start is going in here to Spark ML, or actually, we're gonna go back into Spark here. Go into Python, PySpark, and then pick the component that you're interested in. If you're interested in SQL, pick the SQL component. And then you can go ahead and look inside of, say, SQL streaming. And actually, you know, we can also just do this in the documentation. I think doing it in the code is good, though, because as you're going through, you can see that a lot of these methods are actually incredibly simple. And that's just because most of PySpark is implemented by offloading the work into Java. The thing is, it's, you know, these accessor functions aren't automatically created. We have to think about ways to expose the API that makes sense to Python, and so it doesn't always happen right at the same time. And a really good place to start can be figuring out something that's missing, right? And if there's a thing which is missing here, you can go back to our lovely Spark Jira. You can go ahead and you can search for the issue, see if someone else has found it, or if that's not working, you can go in and you can create a new issue and you can describe the work that you want to do. Jira is being a little bit slow today, but you would probably select improvement and priority trivial. You would describe it, you'd put it in the PySpark component, and then you'd just go ahead and you'd fill the rest of it out. And that's pretty much what I would do. And I think this is a really great place to start because not only does the Python API need a little bit more love, and there's a lot of users of it, also, like, if you're actually interested in machine learning or you're actually interested in streaming, it's a good way to do something simple which affects and would get maybe reviewed by the streaming people, but, you know, isn't so complicated for your first issue. And I have a talk about this I think it's on YouTube. I'm gonna double check if I can find it. So yeah, we can see I also have this talk from OSCON 2016, Getting Started Contributing to Apache Spark by Holden. This is from back when I used to work at IBM. It's about a year old, but a lot of the things still hold true. The main one, which is no longer true, is that I'm also a committer on Spark, and so if you go ahead and want to contribute here, especially in the Python area, you can feel free when you make your pull requests. You can @mention me in the comments, and I will come and try and take a look at them. So I'd encourage you to watch this talk and definitely sort of go from there. So I'm going to jump back into finishing up this code review so we can get this functionality merged in. And you can actually see one of the things here is this exposes it in Scala, but we don't actually expose a Python API. And that's actually a really good point for myself. So I should make sure that I've got a follow-up issue for exposing it in Python, and I do. It's issue number 5. And like a great place would be maybe once this code goes in, if you're interested, you could take a look at how other functions are implemented in PySpark ML, and you could add a support for this there. So that being said, let's go through and take a look at this. I want to look at the comments that I left for myself and make sure that I fix those. So the since annotations is the main one. I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to look for since. Okay, since 230. So this happens inside of what class? readWrite.scala. So let's go ahead. readWrite.scala. Abstract class 2. And this becomes, oh, actually, it looks like we do have the must have a valid zero argument constructor. Am I reviewing? Oh yeah, it's there. Okay, that's the ML writer format. Oh, actually, we definitely need to leave the note in here as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Since 230, once again, this is going to be since 240, 240, 240, 240, 240. Super exciting times updating the number 3 to the number 4. And yeah, that's is that me or is that someone else? I imagine that's in option. Yeah. That's interesting. I'm actually, map.put. So this is defined on ML Writer. Adds an option to the under. This seems like what I would have added, but the git diff is telling me I didn't. I'm going to go to a git log-p. We're going to go ahead and see who added that. Actually, we can do a git blame def option. It was added by Wenchen. Interesting. Hey, I'm curious about Wenchen's work here. I want to make sure we added a parameter, whether to collect the full model, default is not. Okay, yeah, this looks fine. I just want to make sure that nothing I was doing was going to, conflict with his work, because it's obviously happened since mine. But we're good. Okay, so there's a question on how to start performing ETL and data integration using Scala and Spark on some real projects. That's a little bit far out of scope for me to talk about in today's session. In general, I'm pretty biased. I think one of the books that I co-wrote, actually two of them together really, probably are the ones that people should look at, Learning Spark and High Performance Spark. This one's like a solid intro, but sort of going into the details around that is a little bit out of scope for today, just because we're focusing on making changes to Spark itself and less around using Spark. Although we can consider doing another one since it looks like there's interests here. So let's go back to whatever I was doing. So yeah, git diff, yeah, okay. So read write. Okay, we're just going to go through and make sure all of the 230 annotations are the ones that we expect, and are not the ones that I added that I want to update, and this will just be a little bit faster. hopefully we can go ahead and switch this into an entire full screen view. And cool. 230, yeah, that's going to be 24, 24. Okay, so that does it for read-write. The only one is option, which was added by Winchin, and so we're good there. Let's go back to the git diff master view and look for more annotations. It looks like there's no more 2.3 annotations that were added. So that is good. Update since annotations to 240 and add comment re0 arg constructor. So that's good. I was actually hoping that this would be in a state where we could just go ahead and merge it today, but it's probably not. But we can see how quickly Jenkins runs, and maybe at the end of today we can come back and consider merging this. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, yep, done. Okay, all GT pending Jenkins will merge. And so normally, you know, in the Spark project, if you've got your own code, it's considered polite to give other people the chance to review, even if you're a committer, just in case, you know, anyone wants to say anything. And we can see here that, you know, Seth clearly did have some comments back in December, but since then, you know, no one's really had any thoughts. We've given people a rather long time, and so provided that it passes the automatic CI tests, we're just going to go ahead and merge this one. So that's good. We're going to go back and look for another pull request. And actually, one of my friends offered to let me review. Well, not let me review. To let me review live one of his pull requests. You don't normally have to wait for permission to review a pull request. It's just, you know, if you're going to talk about someone's code on a video, it's nice to have permission. But leaving comments on GitHub, definitely not generally a requirement. And so this is in the Interact project. Oh, it's already merged. Damn it. Well, so much for that. I mean, this is good. We can see if there are any other pull requests by Kyle that we could take a look at today. There's the front loader. I think he mentioned font loader. Yeah, these are all sort of JavaScript-y, I think, and so they're a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. Yeah. So as much as I would love to review something from the Interact project today, it looks like the outstanding issues right now are sort of more front-end-ish focused, and I just don't have the background to do it. I don't work on the Interact project from day to day, but you know, if it was a Python change, I'd feel more comfortable reviewing those changes. So I guess we're gonna fall back to Spark testing base. And we can also look and see if any of the two people who have said that I can review their Spark pull requests have pending changes. And if you are, you know, interested in contributing to Spark, and you'd be okay with me reviewing your code live, you know, please do reach out and send me a message. Okay, so Spark testing base, there are 10 open pull requests. And we've got the add size generators. And so this is great. We're going to go back in here. And let's see, have there been... Okay, yeah. So it looks like probably a lot of my comments were addressed. We're going to go ahead and just look at the changes in there first. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and we're gonna look at it for the entire change set. Actually, changes for all commits, changes for just this commit. Yeah. So that's good. It looks like I've actually already looked at this one. So we'll go back to the all changes version. Damn ThinkPad. Sometimes not super helpful. So the wrap generators are good. The open question I think was, does it make sense to look at? So this is the main open question on this PR, and it's just because I'm not super sure, and I would love that. And since this comment is from 7 days ago, and the last code push is from 8 days ago, we'll assume that it hasn't been addressed yet. And so that's quite all right. Spark testing base follows a much sort of slower path to development. Oh, we can see that it said Jenkins passed already. It's probably simply out of date. Okay, so Brian has this PySpark params is set state should not change after transformation. And this was one that we actually, I think we looked at it last time. And yeah, it says please take another look when you can. So Brian definitely wants us to take another review look. And so we're going to go through and review these changes while Jenkins is running on my own PR. And I'm going to have some delicious coffee, which my mother very nicely made for me this morning, which is quite sweet because she no longer drinks coffee. But I probably picked up my habit of drinking so much coffee from her when I was a kid. Anyways, easily distracted. So, yeah, this is perfectly reasonable, and we can see the threshold is not set. These are the test cases I would want to see in a PR like this. Pair defaults. Okay. Okay, this is lovely. Yeah. So I appreciate this, that he's going out of his way to support something is reasonable. A few extra lines to avoid potential user surprise, potential unwanted user surprise, is worth it. Right, and so this is, Viria, who is very active in the Spark project, has a question essentially that if these are the same, do we really need to call set default? And the answer is, in the Spark project itself, we actually do test that the default should be the same. But if someone extended one of these in Python and maybe gave it a different default value, while we don't really support this per se, they might see things running with sort of different parameters, and they might not notice, and they might just get incorrect results, and that's kind of the worst way we can fail. And so just being a little extra cautious to make sure that we continue to support even an unsupported use case, or continue to support a not explicitly supported extension. So I like this. It looks good to me. We're actually going to go ahead and merge this since that's what I wanted to do anyways. LGTM. LGTM. Actually, before I say it looks good to me, one of the things which I'm trying to get into a better habit of is double checking that the Jira description really matches and makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and go over here. Yep, that looks like we solved this problem. This is all in all good. Okay. Love it. Let's go ahead and merge Brian's code. So the first step is I'm going to leave a looks good to me comment and hit approve. And so that's great. And now we can go and merge it. And it's been a while, and I've actually had to reset my my laptop during an upgrade. So we're actually going to see if I have the required things to merge a Spark PR. So we're going to actually, I'm just going to go ahead and check out the master branch. I feel more comfortable doing that. And I mean, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, but essentially the merge Spark PR script could have been updated, and I should always use the most recent one, just because I really do not want to leave the Spark repository in a bad state. No changes to that. That's great. So this is the pull request number that we want to merge. And it's going to go ahead and it says, this is the title, PySpark params, is stat state should not change after a transformation. Looks reasonable. This is the one that we want to merge. Yes. So it's going to go ahead, it's going to fetch the pull request, bring it down locally. It's asking, you know, is the primary author Brian? And this is because we squash all of the commits down into one when we're merging it. So we give it a new primary author. In this case, you know, there's only one person. Okay, cool. So there's a great question here, which I'll address after we finish the merge, about switching in between working in different languages and best practices between languages, how they vary. So we'll merge Brian's code, and it's actually really relevant to the code that we're merging today, so we'll talk about that. And so we can see this is the proposed git commit. Everything looks fine. We're going to go ahead and push this to the Apache repo. And so it wants my username. And it wants my password, which I don't necessarily remember, and I have track of in LastPass. But probably should not open my LastPass password vault in front of y'all. So I'm going to switch to our Be Right Back screen for just a second. Okay. So it timed out on me, which is great, and by great I mean incredibly inconvenient. So we're going to go ahead and try and run the merge script once more. There we go. It said, what did it say? Rejected, non-fast forward. Oh. Well. Damn it. Today we get to enjoy the wonderful world of tooling, which, when it fails in an inconvenient state. Thankfully we know it's not pushed yet, and so that's fine. We can see here it's fetched a new branch. Once again, Brian Cutler, push to Apache. And now it is pushed. Now here's the option where if we wanted to backport this somewhere else, we could. I don't. It's just a new thing. And it said that I don't have the Jira library installed, so we're going to go ahead and install that. But in the meantime, we're going to update our Jiras manually anyways. Let's go back. Yep, this is the one. We're going to go ahead and assign this to Brian since he did the main work. I'm going to click yep. We're going to go ahead, resolve issue, and it is fixed in 240. And yeah, resolve. Now the other important thing to do is to go back into the pull request and leave a comment, merge to master. This is just a social thing. Eventually some bots will show up and leave some comments there too. So that's great, and now we can go ahead and answer the question about switch in between working in different languages. And so this is actually really complicated. I had a live stream earlier this week where we were making a cross-language project called Sparkling ML. And you can look at that code. Inside of Spark itself, though, it's a lot simpler because we already have sort of Python wrappers for the Java objects, and it's just a matter of calling them. And so we can actually see in Brian's change here, the one that we just merged. You know, what's happening is inside of this, you know, it's calling this set default function on the specified Java object. And this is because many of the Python objects are actually just thin wrappers around Java objects. So it's just going ahead and calling set default. And this just happens behind the scenes automatically for us. And this is done using Py4j, which is a really lovely project. And it keeps getting better, which is really great. The error messages are sometimes confusing, as you may have noticed if you were with me yesterday. And so if you want to see that one, the one where we were working on the cross-language project, we're going to go in to my channel here, probably playlists, open source reviews and streams. We're going to hit pause because that's going to be awkward. And it's this vectorized UDFs with Apache Spark. This is the one you're going to want to see. I can leave a comment here. No, I do not want a free trial. And this shows you how to work with Apache Spark's new vectorized UDFs if you're interested. It's generally pretty cool, the new vectorized UDFs, but this also shows you how to take those vectorized UDFs in Python and expose them to Java users, which is is more complicated than it should be. Multi-language pipelines outside of hosted environments from certain providers are a little bit difficult. And so that's just what it is. If you're interested, though, the GitHub Sparkling ML project has some examples in here where we do that work. And I'm actually working on a blog post that'll go into more detail. But if you want to just go ahead and read some code right now, you can see our startup function is doing a bunch of Java imports and essentially miscellaneous Java magic here to register this Python class as a class that the JVM can call and use to get back UDFs to use. Which is, it's kind of complicated, but it works. So that's sort of the answer to that one. Or, I mean, it's the best answer that I can give in like 3 minutes. We're going to go back and see. Okay, awesome. So with the test pass, everything is good. I'm going to go, since this is my own PR, and, it's not a committer committing someone else's code, it's a committer committing my own code. I want to just double check because sometimes we're not as careful with our own stuff, and I just want to be aware of that and not do that. Okay, so there's no since annotations on these classes, but they're private anyways. That's fine. The 2 3 zeros were replaced with 2 4s. Let's actually double check. Yeah, that's fine. And we have the comment. And that is what it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to merge this, and hopefully, we can start seeing better model export in Spark. So let's go ahead. And we can see here it's reordered to this Jira number, then this Jira number, then ML. Oh, let's actually double check those 2 Jira numbers really quickly. So this is, I want to make sure essentially I'm not closing the umbrella Jira by accident. PMML for Pipelines API. Yeah. Oh, this is the umbrella Jira, so that's not really what we want to close right now because there's a lot of subtasks. So we're actually going to go ahead and say Control-C and not do this. We're going to go ahead and add a different subtask. Add base PMML trait for ML pipelines. And this is component is ML and it affects 240. PML, add a base, add a new generic export trait. Add a new generic export trait for ML pipelines so that we can support more than just our internal format. API design based off of the data frame reader writer design. And so we're going to have this subtask here. And I want these 2 separate Jiras so that it's clear that this is both adding a specific instance and adding the general base trait. So we can see here, we're going to go in and we're going to update the title and we're going to hit save. I'm going to double check this Jira number again, just make sure it's reasonable. Yeah. Okay, cool. That looks good. Actually, one of the other things is if you are interested in cross-language pipelines, I am talking at 2 meetups, one of them in Chicago, sorry to switch gears, at the Chicago Spark users meetup this Monday on how to put Python code in production more quickly, essentially by interoperating with Java, and I'll be at the, we will see in a second or two if it updates, but the TLDR is my computer decided that was an excellent time to crash in the middle of merging a pull request, so that is so much fun. Let's go ahead and get this started. Yes, we are gonna restore all of my wonderful Chrome pages really quickly. And we're going to go back to merging that pull request. That's the Spark testing base one. We can see actually Brian's pull request is now recorded as merged, so that's exciting. And yeah, I got the pull request number from my own, and we can go ahead and merge that really quickly in the last 5 minutes or so. So this is the pull request we want to merge. It's going to go ahead and modify the title for us again. This looks fine. Yep. And it's fetching the pull request from GitHub. This is actually a really interesting point. You can fetch individual pull requests from GitHub. So if you're interested in, checking to see if your bug is fixed by someone, a good way to do it can be checking out the code on a pull request, building it, and seeing if this works. And so this looks like the author is myself. That's sort of what I expected. It's my own code. And merge complete, push to Apache. Yes. Okay. And hopefully I remember my password for 30 seconds. It looks like I did, and so it has pushed to Apache, and I don't want to merge this to another branch. And I don't actually know if I have the Jira credentials set up. We're going to find out, and it looks like it didn't have a good time on the Jira website, so we're going to go ahead and manually resolve those two Jira numbers ourselves. Yep, this is the first one. We're just going to press this assign to me button. Cool. Resolve issue. And fixes version 240. And now that this is merged, right, like if you wanted to go ahead, a great follow-up issue would be, and I mean the issue is already created, but if you're interested, as soon as this finishes updating, which I imagine will just be a second or two, which whenever I say it about Jira, I regret. If you're interested, a good follow-up issue which already exists is exposing this in the Python side. And if someone wants to do that, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to walk you through the process so you can get your first sort of pull request into Spark. And this is going kind of slowly. And add a new generic. Yep. Export trait. And so once again, assign to me. Resolve issue. Fix version 240. Cool. That's great. It's resolved. It's now 11:58. And so we're getting to a pretty natural stopping point for code reviews. If anyone has more questions, though, if you want to ask them in the live chat right now, I would be more than happy to answer them. OBS Studio is having a fun time. That's trippy. We'll fix this another day. Yay! But so thank you all for watching today. I hope you learned something more about how open source pull requests in the Apache Spark project work. And hopefully next time there will be some updates in both Spark testing base and maybe one of the Interact family of projects. from Kyle, who we can merge his changes. And remember, if you are in Chicago, I will be there on Monday for this meetup, and San Francisco friends, I will be at the San Francisco meetup on Thursday. And so this is where I'll be on Thursday, and there are still 58 spots remaining, so feel free to come and join. Chicago one, 11 spots remaining, so a little bit more full, but please come to join. Okay, cool. So we have a question. It seems like the code updates are for Spark 2.4. When is it expected to be released? How much difference will it make for a beginner who has started learning Spark 2.3? So that is a great question. Thank you for asking it. So essentially, it shouldn't make that big a difference. Inside of the 2.x series, we more or less keep on essentially API compatibility. So things that you've learned in 2.3 will continue to work in 2.4. We're not expecting large changes in Spark 2.4. Of course, it's an open source project, so what I'm expecting and what actually happens don't necessarily have to line up. It's very much up to all the community to decide what goes into Spark 2.4, but normally we wouldn't expect big breaking changes in Spark 2.4. Definitely though, like if you're learning with Spark 2.3, that's great, keep learning there. That's the released version. The code that I'm showing you is stuff which is going into our master branch. It's actively being developed, and it may not make it into the release as it is, right? Someone may later on, come along and have ideas for improvement about the changes that I just committed and change them a little bit there. And so when is it expected to be released? That part is a little bit more hard to answer. The Spark project has been shooting for a maybe quarterly-ish release cycle. Probably closer to 4 months than 3. But it's hard to say, right? It depends on a lot of factors. One of the big ones is release managers. And it takes a lot of effort to guide a release through. I've done it once for the Spark project. And more frequent releases require more release manager time. And so, having a release manager takes away from whatever Spark coding they would be able to do. Okay, and so on that note, we're going to wrap up. And I'm going to probably not bother editing out the part where the computer failed. If you want, definitely consider subscribing to the channel.